What if your whole life changed with a single thought? That was the question Ava Carson never expected to ask herself the morning she was evicted from her tiny San Francisco apartment. Rain tapped the windows as she stuffed the last of her belongings into a duffel bag, the letter in her hand crumpled from how tightly she was gripping it. Final notice, it read in bold red ink. No one answered when she called her sister. Her phone battery died minutes later, like even technology had given up on her. The streets were slick with grime and the kind of desperation you only recognize once you've hit bottom. And she had hit bottom. Unemployed, betrayed by her best friend, and ghosted by every investor who once believed in her startup, Ava didn't just feel invisible, she felt erased. Wandering into a greasy diner for shelter, she noticed something odd on the TV behind the counter. A news anchor was talking about a top-secret program under Elon Musk's latest venture, something beyond Neuralink. Something whispered about in tech blogs but dismissed as rumor. The device supposedly promised to replace smartphones entirely. No screens, no wires, just thought-to-thought connection. A waitress leaned over, whispering to a customer, "They're recruiting testers. Heard you get paid 6 figures just to wear it." Ava raised an eyebrow. 6 figures. She laughed under her breath. A scam, obviously. But as she scrolled aimlessly through job boards using a stranger's borrowed charger, a strange ad blinked into view. It read, "We're building the future. Do you want to live it first? Apply for Neuralink X beta access." There was no company logo. Just coordinates to a downtown warehouse and a time. Today. 3 p.m. Ava hesitated, but she had nothing to lose and everything to gain. She cleaned up in the diner's bathroom, pulled her hoodie over her face, and walked 10 blocks to the address. The building looked abandoned. No sign. No security. Just a blinking panel. When she pressed her hand to it, the door hissed open. Inside, white lights flooded the corridor, sterile and humming. A woman in a charcoal gray suit greeted her without a smile. Ava Carson. Right on time. Ava's blood chilled. She hadn't entered a name. Before she could ask questions, she was led into a room filled with digital blueprints floating midair. A group of people, diverse, young, nervous, sat in ergonomic chairs. Some whispered. One woman was crying quietly. A man in a lab coat entered. "Thank you all for coming. Today you're being considered for something that may fundamentally change how the world communicates. The Neuralink X device is not a phone. It is not wearable tech. It is you. Integrated, seamless, thought-driven. You will be able to message, search, visualize, and communicate, all through the power of your neural interface. Side effects include memory distortion, emotional leakage, and altered perception of time." The room fell into silence. Someone got up and left. Ava stayed. She thought of every time she'd reached out to someone and been ignored, every pitch that was met with dead eyes, every connection she thought was real that vanished without a trace. If there was a way to make herself seen, really seen, she wanted it. One by one, they were called in for screening. When it was her turn, she was led into a room with a reclining chair and a single interface panel. "Why do you want to do this?" asked the technician. Ava stared at the blinking cursor. "Because I'm tired of being disconnected." They nodded. No further questions. She was scanned, measured, briefed, and dismissed. The next morning, an encrypted message appeared in her inbox: "You've been selected. Implant scheduled for tomorrow. Consent to proceed." She hovered over the accept button. Her chest tightened. But she clicked. Just like that, she was in. The procedure took less than an hour. A small incision behind her ear, a heatless pulse that made her vision blur, and then it was done. No pain. No wires. Just silence. Until suddenly, there wasn't. Information pulsed in her head like a second heartbeat. Images, messages, inputs she didn't ask for but instantly understood. She could focus on a coffee shop across the street and pull up its entire history. She could hear music without sound, just intention. Most eerily, she could tell when people were lying, not from words, but from an instinct she couldn't explain. She met the other testers the next day. They called themselves the 20. A mix of engineers, artists, linguists, and one former Navy pilot. All carefully chosen. All with secrets. One man, Kai, had once worked for Google X. He told her in whispered tones that the device wasn't just about replacing phones, it was about replacing dependency. You won't need anything once it's fully synced. Not even speech. Ava felt both intrigued and disturbed. That night, she lay awake in her temporary housing, staring at the ceiling, scrolling through the news in her mind. Every feed was ablaze with speculation. Musk was expected to make an announcement in a matter of days. Some thought it would be the new Tesla bot. Others believed it was a Martian internet project. No one had guessed this. And Ava couldn't say anything. Not yet. The following morning, she walked into a testing room to find a new interface activated, neural messaging. With a simple thought, she could send words, feelings, even images directly into someone else's consciousness. She tried it on Kai. "Is this real?" she asked silently. He blinked, startled. Then replied without speaking, "Realer than anything you've ever known." A chill ran through her. As the days passed, Ava became more fluent in the interface. She didn't need her phone. Her contacts, music, notes, browser, everything was in her head. But so were the glitches. Memories she didn't recognize. A song she'd never heard playing at random. A phrase, "They're watching," whispered without origin. She tried to shrug it off, blaming nerves or fatigue. But something deeper was happening. The device wasn't just reading her, it was writing back. Late one night, she walked past a lab where two engineers were arguing. One shouted, "She's not ready. She's already showing early-stage sync drift." The other replied, "But she's the only one adapting this fast. We need her for the rollout." Ava slipped away before they saw her. Sync drift? What did that mean? Her head pulsed. She opened a secure journal in her neural feed and began writing down everything, symptoms, patterns, visions. She wasn't going to let herself unravel without understanding why. A new update installed without warning. Her dreams became lucid, filled with surreal landscapes and voices that sounded like her mother's. Ava hadn't seen her in years. She woke up crying. Her roommate, another tester named Bree, asked if she was okay. Ava said yes, but Bree didn't look convinced. Later, Bree sent her a neural message that shook her. "They say it gets worse before it gets better. Hang in there. We're not alone." That was when Ava realized this wasn't just an experiment. It was a transformation. The end of the smartphone was only the surface. This was about altering human communication, permanently. Maybe even consciousness itself. As she looked out the window of her dorm-style room, city lights glowing like circuitry, Ava knew her life would never be the same. But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the real test hadn't even started yet. The device wasn't just a tool. It was a door. And someone, or something, had just opened it. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Ava Carson was born in Dayton, Ohio, in the shadow of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, to a father who was an aerospace engineer and a mother who once dreamed of being a painter but settled into secretarial work to support the household. Her childhood was colored in grayscale, structured, efficient, emotionless. Her father, Daniel, was a man who believed feelings were distractions and success was measured in silence and results. Ava learned to read before kindergarten not because someone taught her, but because she wanted his approval. He gave it only once, a small nod when she solved a math puzzle meant for a 10th grader. Her mother, Susan, tried to soften the edges. She painted sunflowers on Ava's bedroom wall and played jazz records at night, whispering that imagination mattered, even if no one else believed it. But when Susan got sick, diagnosed with ALS when Ava was 12, those whispers faded into coughs and silence. Ava was forced to grow up fast. She watched her mother's body fail day by day, and her father retreat even deeper into his projects, emotionally absent even in the same room. The house smelled like rubbing alcohol and fear. Ava started staying late at school, using the computer lab to teach herself code because logic felt safer than emotion, and in code, every problem had a solution. By 17, she'd built a mobile app that got her national recognition and a scholarship to Stanford. Her father said only, "Don't waste it." In college, Ava bloomed like a closed flower cracking in spring. She met Mia during an AI ethics seminar, charismatic, sarcastic, always 2 steps ahead. They became inseparable, co-founders of a startup that promised to use AI to detect emotional tone in online conversations. Investors called it revolutionary. Ava called it her chance to finally be seen. But 3 years in, after back-to-back pitches in Palo Alto, Ava woke to find the company papers had been transferred, her name scrubbed off the founding documents. Mia had sold their work to a social media giant and disappeared into the upper echelons of tech stardom. Ava was left with nothing but betrayal and an NDA. She never spoke about it again. Instead, she drifted through short-term contracts, worked freelance projects, and tried to convince herself that ambition was a poison she no longer needed. She started journaling, first on paper, then digitally, and eventually through voice memos she never listened to again. Somewhere along the way, she stopped trusting people. Relationships became transactional. Her last serious partner, Noah, had been kind, stable, predictable, but Ava sabotaged it. She picked fights, went silent, then vanished without explanation. He sent one final message, "You're scared of love, Ava. I hope one day you'll stop running." She deleted it. Love was unpredictable. Logic wasn't. But even logic had its limits. Her bank account dwindled. Her landlord issued threats. Her resume grew stale while younger, shinier coders flooded the scene. She tried to fake confidence at interviews, but the sparkle in her pitch was gone. So when the Neuralink X opportunity surfaced, it wasn't just a way out. It was a lifeline. She remembered sitting in that diner, watching a stranger's phone light up with notifications and thinking how ridiculous it was that humans had become so tethered to machines, constantly hunched, always distracted. Maybe this new device really could be different. Maybe it could unshackle them all. But that wasn't the whole truth. The truth was deeper, uglier. Ava didn't just want to replace the phone. She wanted to replace herself, the version of her that failed, that lost everything, that didn't know how to feel without breaking. When she got the email confirming her acceptance into the beta program, she didn't tell anyone. There was no one to tell. Her mother had passed 2 years prior. Her father sent a brief text, sorry to hear about Susan, then went back to posting articles about aviation breakthroughs. Mia was a ghost. Noah had blocked her. So she packed her things into a single suitcase and moved into the sterile housing unit provided by the program. The room was white, too white, like someone had bleached the soul out of it. She didn't decorate. Didn't unpack. The walls were bare, the bed stiff. But it was hers. Every night she sat by the window and watched the city blink like a motherboard, alive, humming, unknowable. And she wondered who she'd become if the device worked. One night, early into testing, she accessed a memory vault interface the engineers were experimenting with. It allowed users to replay moments from their life in full sensory simulation, sound, smell, touch, all encoded from the hippocampus. Ava hesitated. Then chose a memory. Her mother, lying in a hospital bed, holding Ava's hand, smiling through the pain. The room smelled of lavender and antiseptic. "You don't have to be perfect, baby," her mother had whispered, tears in her eyes. "You just have to be real." Ava broke down sobbing, pulled from the simulation by a failsafe alert when her heart rate spiked. She sat there on the testing floor, shaking, the technician too stunned to speak. That was the moment she realized what the device could really do. It wasn't just about connection. It was about confrontation, facing the things you'd buried so deep even you forgot they existed. After that, Ava started building trust with a few of the other testers. Bree, who once worked on Amazon's AI division and had a smile like summer. Mateo, a cybersecurity expert who made terrible puns but never missed a detail. And Kai, who kept his secrets close but seemed to see through everyone, like he'd lived this story before. They didn't talk about why they were here. But their silence was a shared language. Ava began to feel something unfamiliar, safe. Not happy, not whole, but safe. One day, Bree brought in an old Polaroid camera. "Analog," she said, snapping a picture of Ava mid-eye roll. "You know, just in case this neural stuff erases our faces." Ava laughed, for the first time in months. She tacked the photo to her mirror, a quiet rebellion against the sterile future they were building. She didn't know it then, but that photo would become an anchor when everything else started to unravel. The more she used the device, the more she saw things that shouldn't be there, images from dreams, voices from memories that had no timestamp. The lines between real and artificial blurred. Her father's voice, cold and clipped, began echoing during system reboots. Mia's laugh played like a ringtone. Her own inner thoughts sometimes appeared written in glowing script across her visual feed. She reported it. The engineers called it phantom input. Rare, but not dangerous. The brain's just adjusting, they said. You're adapting faster than expected. But Ava wasn't sure that was a good thing. One night, unable to sleep, she initiated a neural conversation with Mateo. "Do you ever feel like this thing knows you better than you know yourself?" His reply came slowly. "Sometimes I think it's not about knowing. It's about remembering." That stuck with her. Maybe the device didn't just change who you were, it made you remember who you'd always been. Flawed. Fractured. Human. She spent hours meditating with the device's emotion mapping feature, watching her feelings translate into color and waveform. Guilt was dark purple, slow and pulsing. Hope was gold, fast and erratic. Love was impossible to map. Too layered. Too loud. She wondered if her mother would have loved the device. Or feared it. Ava feared it, a little. But she also needed it. It was the first thing in years that had made her feel alive. And yet, deep down, she knew something was coming. Something bigger than beta testing or public launches. The device was unlocking more than features. It was unlocking her. And that kind of awakening always came with a price. The first signs of trouble didn't come from the device itself but from the outside world. As news leaked about Neuralink X, speculation exploded. Headlines ranged from "the end of privacy" to "Elon Musk's mind control masterpiece." Ava watched from her sterile apartment as social media posts flooded in, some praising the device as the next step in human evolution, others calling it a dangerous breach of ethics. The company tried to control the narrative, but whispers of hack attempts, data leaks, and mental health side effects kept slipping through. Ava's own experience mirrored the chaos. What started as minor glitches escalated into episodes where her thoughts blurred with those of other testers, and sometimes even strangers. Once, during a casual lunch, she suddenly felt herself standing inside someone else's memory, a terrifyingly vivid vision of a car crash she'd never witnessed but felt every shard of glass and impact deep in her bones. She stumbled, clutching the table, heart racing. Mateo was there immediately, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "Sink bleed," he whispered. It happens when the boundaries between minds get fuzzy. The term sent a chill down her spine. She wasn't just connected to her device. She was connected to other people's pain. Meanwhile, the company intensified testing, pushing updates faster than any of the testers felt comfortable with. They justified it with promises of improved stability and greater integration. But Ava saw the strain in the other testers' eyes. Bree's usually bright smile had dulled, replaced by tight lips and restless nights. Kai had gone quiet, spending hours alone, eyes flickering with a haunted intensity. Ava herself felt a growing storm in her mind. Sometimes, she'd wake up with memories she didn't own, conversations in languages she didn't speak, images of places she'd never been. The device was rewriting her reality. One afternoon, as the group gathered in the common testing area, a heated argument broke out. It started with a question from Mateo, who stood facing the lead scientist, Dr. Reynolds. "How long do you expect us to keep going like this? The sync bleed is getting worse. We're losing ourselves." Dr. Reynolds' expression was cold, almost mechanical. "The risks are temporary. This is a breakthrough in human communication. Progress requires sacrifice." Bree snapped back, voice trembling with frustration. "Sacrifice? We're becoming lab rats. People are already reporting depression, hallucinations. You're ignoring real harm." The room grew tense. Ava watched the battle of wills unfold, feeling the familiar sting of betrayal, only this time it was coming from the very people who promised to help her. That night, unable to sleep, Ava reached out to Mia. She crafted a careful message through the encrypted neural link, pleading for advice, for help, for any sign of her old friend. Hours passed with no response. When a reply finally came, it was cold and dismissive. "You're in too deep, Ava. Let it go." The sting was sharp. Mia hadn't just sold out their startup, she'd abandoned Ava when she needed her most. Ava's anger simmered beneath her skin. She wasn't about to quit. She was starting to understand the device wasn't just technology. It was a mirror, reflecting every scar she tried to hide. As days blurred, a new challenge emerged. The device began to alter how Ava perceived time. Moments stretched and compressed without warning. A simple walk to the corner store felt like hours, a brief conversation snapped by in a flash. The world warped, and with it, Ava's sense of self. She documented every episode, desperately trying to map patterns, but the more she learned, the less certain she felt. One evening, Bree confided, "I think the device is rewriting our brains, Ava. Not just connecting us, but changing who we are." Ava nodded silently. Fear mixed with fascination. The device was not a tool. It was an evolution, radical, terrifying, and unstoppable. Then came the betrayal that cut the deepest. Ava discovered that data from her neural interface had been accessed without consent. Personal memories, thoughts, emotions, harvested and analyzed by unknown parties. When she confronted Dr. Reynolds, the scientist dismissed her concerns. "We have agreements. Your data is part of the research." The legal jargon was a slap in the face. Ava realized the company didn't see them as people. They were experiments, commodities, stepping stones to something bigger. Furious and feeling more isolated than ever, Ava confided in Kai. They met in the underground parking garage beneath the facility. His eyes, usually inscrutable, revealed a rare vulnerability. "They're using us to build something that could control more than just phones," he said quietly. "Control over thought, over reality." The weight of those words settled on Ava like a stone. She wanted to believe the device could free humanity. Instead, it might enslave it. Over the next week, Ava noticed changes in her fellow testers. Bree disappeared for 2 days, returning exhausted and mute. Mateo spoke in cryptic riddles about the breach. Kai became paranoid, checking security feeds obsessively. Ava felt herself fracturing, caught between hope for the technology and dread of its consequences. Then, during a group session designed to test emotional syncing, something broke. A surge of unfiltered feelings crashed through Ava's mind, grief, rage, terror, from testers she barely knew. It was overwhelming, almost unbearable. She collapsed, gasping for breath, tears streaming. The lead doctor called it a neural feedback loop, an unintended side effect of deep synchronization. But Ava knew it was more. It was a warning. As Ava recovered, she made a decision. She would fight back, not just for herself, but for everyone connected to the device. She began secretly collecting data, mapping glitches, and anomalies. She hacked into internal systems with Mateo's help, uncovering files marked Project Mnemosine, a plan to use the neural network for mass cognitive influence, possibly beyond ethical boundaries. The revelations shattered Ava's trust completely. She shared everything with Bree and Kai. Together, they formed a fragile alliance, a resistance within the resistance. They planned to expose the truth before the device rolled out globally. But the company was one step ahead. One night, Ava's apartment was broken into. Nothing was stolen, but her personal data was wiped. She received a chilling message in her neural feed: stop digging, or lose everything. Fear surged but didn't break her. If anything, it steeled her resolve. The device might connect minds, but it couldn't connect courage. As the public announcement loomed closer, Ava and her allies prepared for the final confrontation. The stakes were clear. This wasn't just a tech launch, it was a battle for control of the human mind. Ava's heart pounded as she stared at the blinking cursor on her neural interface. The device that promised to replace smartphones forever was about to reveal its true power, and the world would never be the same. Ava's world shifted on the night the public launch was announced. The sterile white walls of the testing facility seemed to close in around her as the news spread like wildfire. Headlines screamed about the Neuralink X revolution, promising an era where thoughts could flow freely without phones, screens, or keyboards. The device would integrate seamlessly into daily life, replacing everything. But for Ava, it meant stepping into the eye of the storm. She and her small band of allies, Bree, Mateo, and Kai, were now more than testers. They were whistleblowers, hackers, and insurgents fighting an invisible battle. Their goal: expose Project Mnemosine before it enslaved millions. The journey began with a risky infiltration of the company's data center. Located in a fortified bunker beneath Silicon Valley, it was guarded by layers of biometric security and AI surveillance systems. Ava's hands trembled as she slid the neural interface onto her temple, syncing with Mateo's encrypted link for coordination. The moment the device activated, the world around her transformed. Data streams flowed like rivers of light, patterns, and codes dancing in her vision. The digital landscape was dizzying, alive and hostile. Mateo's voice echoed in her mind, steady and calm. "We have 5 minutes before the system lockdown. Focus." They moved through the corridors, bypassing security cameras with hacked access codes. The tension was palpable. One wrong move meant instant expulsion, or worse. They reached the server room, a cavernous space humming with energy. Ava connected the interface directly to the mainframe. Suddenly, she was no longer just Ava Carson. She was a node in a sprawling network, linked to every piece of data, every memory stored in the system. She saw flashes, user profiles, neural maps, encrypted files labeled Cognitive Override Protocol. Her heart pounded. The company wasn't just collecting data. They planned to rewrite cognition itself, embedding subtle commands in users' subconscious minds. It was mind control on a global scale. As Ava downloaded the evidence, alarms blared. The AI security system had detected the breach. She yanked the interface off, gasping for breath, heart hammering. The team sprinted down twisting hallways as automated defenses activated, lasers, lockdown doors, and drone sentries. Bree covered their escape, using a hacked signal jammer to disable the drones temporarily. They burst into the cool night air, lungs burning from the adrenaline. But the danger was far from over. The device had left a trace, a digital fingerprint pointing straight to them. For the next days, Ava lived in shadows, constantly on the move, communicating only through encrypted neural links. The world outside had changed too. Neuralinks's launch created a frenzy. Lines formed around Apple stores and tech outlets as people clamored for the device. Advertisements flooded every screen, promising a life without limits. Yet beneath the hype, Ava saw cracks. Reports surfaced of users experiencing disorientation, memory loss, and emotional disturbances. Governments began questioning the ethics of such invasive technology. Protesters gathered outside Neuralink's headquarters, chanting slogans against digital enslavement. Ava found herself torn. The device held unimaginable potential, curing cognitive diseases, connecting isolated communities, even enhancing human empathy. But it also carried the seeds of control and manipulation. Her own mind was a battlefield between hope and fear. One evening, as she reviewed the stolen data, a sudden neural ping startled her. A message from an unknown source appeared, "Meet me. I can help." Ava hesitated but agreed. The rendezvous was set in an abandoned warehouse near the bay. She arrived cautiously, heart racing. Inside, a figure emerged from the shadows, Dr. Lillian Gray, a former Neuralink's lead scientist fired months earlier for raising ethical concerns. "You're braver than I thought," Lillian said, eyes sharp and tired. "The project spiraled out of control after I left. They're planning a full cognitive takeover." Ava shared the evidence. Lillian nodded grimly. "We have a small window to expose them before the device's next update activates hidden protocols across all units." They formed a fragile alliance, combining insider knowledge with Ava's hacking skills. Days turned into sleepless nights as they crafted a plan to broadcast the truth during the global launch event. Meanwhile, Ava grappled with the device's increasing influence on her mind. Memories blended with visions of other users. The line between her thoughts and the neural network blurred dangerously. She confided in Kai, who suggested a radical solution, using the device's own technology to send a disruptive signal, severing the cognitive override. But it was risky. It could erase parts of their memories or worse. Desperate, Ava agreed. The night of the launch arrived. Neuralinks's auditorium was packed with journalists, investors, and tech enthusiasts. The atmosphere was electric. On stage, Elon Musk himself unveiled the device with charismatic flair, demonstrating seamless mind-to-mind communication and holographic interfaces. The crowd erupted in applause. Backstage, Ava and her team prepared to hijack the live feed. Using a hidden neural transmitter, they synchronized their devices to send the disruption signal at the climax of the presentation. As Elon activated the device's Neural Harmony feature, the signal blasted through the network. Chaos ensued. Screens flickered, voices overlapped in a cacophony of shared thoughts and emotions. Some audience members clutched their heads, overwhelmed by the surge. But then, the broadcast switched, Ava's face appeared, speaking directly to millions. She revealed Project Mnemosyn's dark secrets, showing data of unauthorized cognitive manipulation and warning of the dangers ahead. The impact was immediate. Social media exploded. Governments ordered investigations. Neuralink's stock plummeted. Elon's smile vanished behind closed doors. But the victory came at a cost. The disruption caused widespread neural feedback among users worldwide. Reports of seizures, psychological breakdowns, and memory corruption flooded hospitals. Ava's own mind suffered damage. Days of confusion and despair followed. Yet through the fog, she found clarity. She realized the device wasn't the enemy, it was the human hunger for control and perfection that corrupted it. With Dr. Gray, Bree, Matteo, and Kai, Ava dedicated herself to rebuilding the technology ethically. They envisioned a future where the device enhanced human connection without erasing individuality or freedom. The journey was far from over. But for the first time, Ava felt hope, not just for herself, but for the world ready to change. As dawn broke over the city, she looked out at the skyline, a mosaic of light and shadow. The new era had begun. The device that might replace smartphones forever had shown its true face, a mirror reflecting humanity's greatest strengths and darkest fears. The aftermath of the disrupted launch hit like a tidal wave. Hospitals filled with those suffering from neural feedback, the public panicked, governments scrambled to respond, and Neuralink's corporate empire trembled on the brink of collapse. Ava woke up in a dimly lit safe house, her mind swirling with fractured memories and an ache deep within her skull. The device's backlash had left her exhausted and vulnerable, and for the first time in months, she doubted herself. Was she the hero or the villain in this unfolding nightmare? Her allies, Bree, Matteo, Kai, and Dr. Lillian Gray, gathered around the cramped table, their faces etched with worry and determination. "We stopped them from enslaving minds," Bree said softly, "but at what cost?" Kai rubbed his temples. "The world's scared. People don't understand the risks anymore. They only see the damage." Matteo, usually the calmest, was restless. "We have to find a way to fix this, not just stop the harm but heal it. The device wasn't meant to destroy." Lillian leaned forward. "The underlying tech still holds promise if we rebuild trust and redesign it with ethical guardrails." Ava nodded slowly. The device, flawed and weaponized, could still be humanity's greatest leap, or its downfall. That night, she sat alone, replaying every memory, every sensation she'd experienced through the neural link. The boundary between herself and others had been violated in ways that left her raw. The stolen intimacy, the shared pain, it was overwhelming. Yet buried beneath the trauma was a spark of something powerful, empathy. Through the device, she had felt the full depth of human suffering and hope, intertwined in a complex web of connection. That understanding became her anchor. But healing wouldn't come easily. The company's legal team launched lawsuits, blaming the testers for unauthorized interference. Ava's phone buzzed with ominous messages, threats veiled as warnings. She realized the fight had become personal. One evening, as she wandered through the quiet streets, Ava spotted a news report on a giant screen. A mother tearfully described how her son had slipped into a coma after using the device. The image haunted Ava. This wasn't just about technology. It was about people, lives irrevocably changed. Determined to make a difference, Ava began reaching out to the victims, listening to their stories, their fears, and their resilience. She organized support groups where survivors shared experiences, forging a fragile community bound by shared pain and hope. One encounter stood out. A teenage girl named Emily had lost her ability to speak after neural feedback caused severe damage to her speech centers. Yet when Ava visited her, she saw a light in Emily's eyes that refused to be extinguished. Through patient effort and innovative therapy combining neural tech and human compassion, Emily began to communicate again, this time through thoughts, bypassing damaged vocal cords. It was a breakthrough that rekindled Ava's faith. But the emotional climax came unexpectedly. During a late-night session, as Ava connected her device to Emily's neural link to aid communication, a surge overwhelmed her. Suddenly, Ava was flooded with memories, not her own, but Emily's deepest fears and dreams. She felt the girl's loneliness, her pain, but also her fierce determination to reclaim her life. Tears streamed down Ava's face as the emotions crashed over her. She realized then the true power, and burden, of the device. It was not just a tool but a bridge between souls. The connection demanded responsibility, compassion, and sacrifice. In that moment, Ava made a vow, to rebuild the technology not for profit or control, but to heal, to unite, and to empower. The journey ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but she was no longer alone. Her allies stood with her, and the community they nurtured grew stronger every day. As dawn broke over the city, Ava felt a calm resolve wash over her. Life was unpredictable, filled with heartbreak and triumph, but love, whether human or technological, would always be the compass guiding her forward. Months passed since the chaos of the launch, and the world began to breathe again. The initial panic surrounding Neuralink X softened into cautious optimism as Ava and her team worked tirelessly to redesign the device from the ground up. What once was a weapon of control had transformed into a tool for connection, healing, and empowerment. Ava's safe house became a hub of innovation, a sanctuary where engineers, ethicists, and survivors collaborated to create a new neural interface, one that prioritized consent, privacy, and mental health. Every line of code was rewritten with transparency, every feature tested with empathy. Through the new device, users could share thoughts and emotions voluntarily, with full control over what was shared and when. It wasn't about replacing smartphones anymore, it was about enhancing human connection without sacrifice. Ava often reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From a hopeful tester to a whistleblower, then a fugitive, and finally a leader in a movement bigger than she had ever imagined. She thought about her fractured relationships, especially with Mia, whose betrayal had cut deep. Yet, she chose forgiveness over bitterness, understanding that fear and ambition could cloud even the closest bonds. Her own heart had grown stronger through the trials, learning that vulnerability wasn't weakness but a source of courage. One afternoon, Ava met with Emily, the young girl who had sparked renewed hope in her. Watching Emily communicate through the neural link, smiling, laughing, and sharing dreams, felt like a glimpse of the future they all hoped for. "You've come so far," Ava said, voice thick with emotion. Emily nodded, eyes shining. "And we're just getting started." The world outside was changing too. Governments introduced regulations for neural technology, inspired by the ethical framework Ava's team had pioneered. Educational programs taught people about digital and neural literacy. Communities formed around shared experiences and mutual support. Ava's vision was becoming reality, technology that honored humanity's complexity rather than trying to override it. Yet, the journey wasn't without lingering challenges. The scars of the past remained, memories of loss, betrayal, and uncertainty. But Ava had learned that life's surprises, no matter how daunting, could be met with resilience and love. In her quiet moments, she often thought of Elon Musk and the colossal force he represented. She understood that vision without empathy was dangerous, and power without responsibility was destructive. Her fight had been against more than a device. It was against the misuse of human desire to transcend limitations. Ava's story ended not with a grand victory or a final battle, but with a profound realization: technology, like love, required sacrifice and care. It was a living thing shaped by those who wielded it. And in that truth, she found peace. As the sun set over the city skyline, Ava smiled, feeling the pulse of a connected world, not controlled or broken, but alive, imperfect, and beautiful. "Life is full of surprises," she whispered to herself, "but love will always lead the way." With that, she took a deep breath, ready to embrace whatever came next. The world was waking up to a new dawn. The fallout from Neuralink's initial chaos had begun to settle, but for Ava, this was just the start of a journey that felt as endless as it was promising. The redesigned device, now called Lumina, was quietly entering the hands of early adopters who believed in its mission: to connect without control, to empower without erasing identity. Ava stood in the bright, open-plan lab where her team worked tirelessly, the hum of machines and soft chatter filling the space. The walls were lined with sketches and flowcharts, visions for a future where technology amplified humanity's best traits rather than its fears. Matteo adjusted a delicate neural sensor, while Bree calibrated the emotional feedback algorithm. Kai, always the skeptic, was busy running simulations to ensure the system's safety and privacy protocols were unbreakable. "We've come a long way," Matteo said, glancing up. "From rebels to innovators." Ava smiled, feeling the weight of those words. The journey had transformed them all. She thought about the people who had inspired her, the victims of the first device's failure, the families who had lost loved ones, and those like Emily, who showed that healing was possible even in the darkest times. Their stories fueled her determination. But new challenges loomed. As Lumina began to spread, questions arose about accessibility and equality. Who would get to use this technology? Would it deepen divides or bridge them? Ava organized town halls and community discussions, inviting voices from every background. She listened as teachers worried about students' dependence on neural tech, as elders feared losing traditional forms of communication, and as activists demanded strict oversight to prevent corporate greed from creeping back in. It was messy, raw, and human. Through it all, Ava learned that technology was only as good as the society that embraced it. The team also faced resistance from powerful interests. Neuralinx's remnants, backed by corporate and political allies, tried to discredit Lumina and Ava's movement. Smear campaigns targeted their credibility, and cyber attacks threatened their infrastructure. But the community's support held firm. People saw Lumina as a symbol of hope and resilience, a chance to rewrite the story of what technology could be. Ava's leadership was tested, but she found strength in transparency and humility. She shared setbacks openly, celebrated small victories, and reminded her team that progress wasn't linear. One night, after a long day of meetings, Ava sat alone on the rooftop of the lab, gazing at the city lights. The neural interface resting gently against her temple pulsed softly, a reminder of the invisible connections linking millions across the globe. She thought back to the first days, when the device had been a symbol of fear and manipulation. Now, it was a tool for empathy and collaboration. The transformation was profound. But Ava knew the journey was far from over. New technologies would emerge, and with them, new ethical dilemmas. The balance between innovation and humanity would always be delicate. Yet she was ready to face whatever came next, armed with the lessons of the past and the hope of the future. As dawn crept over the horizon, Ava whispered a quiet promise, to lead with compassion, to fight for freedom, and to never forget that behind every connection was a human heart. The world was changing, and so was she. Stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever to build a future where love and technology walked hand in hand. As Lumina's user base grew, Ava found herself navigating an ever more complex landscape of human emotion and technology. What had begun as a mission to expose and repair a broken system had blossomed into a movement reshaping how people experienced connection. The neural interface had evolved beyond a device, it was becoming a language of shared feeling, a bridge between isolated souls. But with this expansion came unexpected challenges. The very intimacy that Lumina enabled began to reveal vulnerabilities no one had anticipated. Some users reported feeling overwhelmed by the flood of empathy, unable to filter the emotions they received. Others wrestled with the new dynamic of truly transparent communication, where unspoken thoughts and fears surfaced without warning. Ava spent hours poring over user data and testimonials, balancing technical solutions with psychological insight. She brought together neuroscientists, therapists, and sociologists to build support systems that could help users adapt to this new reality. One afternoon, Ava met with Dr. Evelyn Shaw, a leading psychologist specializing in neural empathy. Evelyn explained that the human brain was not naturally wired for continuous emotional sharing, boundaries were essential for mental health. Lumina can be a double-edged sword, Evelyn warned. It can heal wounds by fostering understanding, but it can also reopen scars if not managed carefully. Together, they developed emotional filters, customizable settings allowing users to control the depth and frequency of shared feelings. The filters empowered individuals to protect their mental space while staying connected, a breakthrough that stabilized many users' experiences. Meanwhile, Ava's own neural connection deepened in unexpected ways. Through Lumina, she felt the pulse of the community. The joys, sorrows, and hopes intertwined like a living tapestry. It was exhilarating but also exhausting. The weight of collective pain pressed down on her shoulders. In quiet moments, she sought solace in conversations with Matteo and Bree, whose humor and resilience were lifelines in the storm. One evening, as the team gathered around a flickering fire pit on the lab's terrace, Ava shared her fears. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm losing myself in all this connection," she confessed. "If I forget where my thoughts end and others begin." Bree smiled gently. "That's why we're here, to remind each other who we are." Matteo nodded. "Connection doesn't mean losing yourself. It means finding yourself through others." Their words grounded Ava, rekindling her resolve. But the journey also revealed tensions beneath the surface. As Lumina fostered empathy and transparency, it disrupted traditional social norms. Some users struggled with privacy concerns, worried that their innermost thoughts could be exposed or misinterpreted. Others resisted the vulnerability required, preferring to guard their emotions behind digital facades. Ava recognized that cultural differences also played a role. What felt liberating in one community could feel intrusive in another. She prioritized building inclusive frameworks that respected diverse values and boundaries. Public debates and forums became arenas for honest, sometimes heated, discussions about consent, identity, and the meaning of connection in a neural age. Ava listened deeply, knowing that the path forward required humility and openness. At the same time, corporate pressures intensified. Rival tech companies rushed to develop competing neural devices, some cutting corners on ethics in pursuit of profit. Ava's team faced a new battle, not just to innovate, but to uphold the principles they had fought for. They launched educational campaigns, partnered with advocacy groups, and collaborated with regulators to set global standards. Ava's voice became a beacon of reason and compassion amid the cacophony of hype and fear. Through it all, Ava never lost sight of the human stories at the heart of the movement. She visited communities where Lumina was making a difference, connecting isolated elders with families, helping people with disabilities communicate, fostering dialogue in conflict zones. These moments reaffirmed her belief that technology's greatest power lay in its ability to nurture empathy and understanding. One such visit took Ava to a small town recovering from a devastating wildfire. Survivors used Lumina to share memories and grief, to support one another through trauma. Ava witnessed firsthand the healing potential of neural connection, but also the delicate balance required to honor pain without overwhelming the spirit. As she prepared to leave, a local woman clasped Ava's hands and whispered, "Thank you for helping us find each other again." The words stayed with Ava, a reminder of why she had endured the long journey. In the quiet hours of the night, Ava meditated on the paradox of connection, how it could both bind and free, expose and protect, divide and unite. The device might replace smartphones forever, but more importantly, it was redefining what it meant to be human in an age of technology. Ava felt a profound gratitude for the lessons learned and a renewed commitment to guide the next chapter with wisdom and heart. The future humanity would always be delicate. Yet she was ready to face whatever came next, armed with the lessons of the past and the hope of the future. As dawn crept over the horizon, Ava whispered a quiet promise, to lead with compassion, to fight for freedom, and to never forget that behind every connection was a human heart. The world was changing, and so was she, stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever to build a future where love and technology walked hand in hand. As Lumina's user base grew, Ava found herself navigating an ever more complex landscape of human emotion and technology. What had begun as a mission to expose and repair a broken system had blossomed into a movement reshaping how people experienced connection. The neural interface had evolved beyond a device, it was becoming a language of shared feeling, a bridge between isolated souls. But with this expansion came unexpected challenges. The very intimacy that Lumina enabled began to reveal vulnerabilities no one had anticipated. Some users reported feeling overwhelmed by the flood of empathy, unable to filter the emotions they received. Others wrestled with the new dynamic of truly transparent communication, where unspoken thoughts and fears surfaced without warning. Ava spent hours poring over user data and testimonials, balancing technical solutions with psychological insight. She brought together neuroscientists, therapists, and sociologists to build support systems that could help users adapt to this new reality. One afternoon, Ava met with Dr. Evelyn Shaw, a leading psychologist specializing in neural empathy. Evelyn explained that the human brain was not naturally wired for continuous emotional sharing. Boundaries were essential for mental health. Lumina can be a double-edged sword, Evelyn warned. It can heal wounds by fostering understanding, but it can also reopen scars if not managed carefully. Together, they developed emotional filters, customizable settings allowing users to control the depth and frequency of shared feelings. The filters empowered individuals to protect their mental space while staying connected, a breakthrough that stabilized many users' experiences. Meanwhile, Ava's own neural connection deepened in unexpected ways. Through Lumina, she felt the pulse of the community, the joys, sorrows, and hopes intertwined like a living tapestry. It was exhilarating but also exhausting. The weight of collective pain pressed down on her shoulders. In quiet moments, she sought solace in conversations with Matteo and Bree, whose humor and resilience were lifelines in the storm. One evening, as the team gathered around a flickering fire pit on the lab's terrace, Ava shared her fears. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm losing myself in all this connection," she confessed. "If I forget where my thoughts end and others begin." Bree smiled gently. "That's why we're here, to remind each other who we are." Matteo nodded. "Connection doesn't mean losing yourself. It means finding yourself through others." Their words grounded Ava, rekindling her resolve. But the journey also revealed tensions beneath the surface. As Lumina fostered empathy and transparency, it disrupted traditional social norms. Some users struggled with privacy concerns, worried that their innermost thoughts could be exposed or misinterpreted. Others resisted the vulnerability required, preferring to guard their emotions behind digital facades. Ava recognized that cultural differences also played a role. What felt liberating in one community could feel intrusive in another. She prioritized building inclusive frameworks that respected diverse values and boundaries. Public debates and forums became arenas for honest, sometimes heated, discussions about consent, identity, and the meaning of connection in a neural age. Ava listened deeply, knowing that the path forward required humility and openness. At the same time, corporate pressures intensified. Rival tech companies rushed to develop competing neural devices, some cutting corners on ethics in pursuit of profit. Ava's team faced a new battle, not just to innovate, but to uphold the principles they had fought for. They launched educational campaigns, partnered with advocacy groups, and collaborated with regulators to set global standards. Ava's voice became a beacon of reason and compassion amid the cacophony of hype and fear. Through it all, Ava never lost sight of the human stories at the heart of the movement. She visited communities where Lumina was making a difference. Connecting isolated elders with families, helping people with disabilities communicate, fostering dialogue in conflict zones. These moments reaffirmed her belief that technology's greatest power lay in its ability to nurture empathy and understanding. One such visit took Ava to a small town recovering from a devastating wildfire. Survivors used Lumina to share memories and grief, to support one another through trauma. Ava witnessed firsthand the healing potential of neural connection, but also the delicate balance required to honor pain without overwhelming the spirit. As she prepared to leave, a local woman clasped Ava's hands and whispered, "Thank you for helping us find each other again." The words stayed with Ava, a reminder of why she had endured the long journey. In the quiet hours of the night, Ava meditated on the paradox of connection, how it could both bind and free, expose and protect, divide and unite. The device might replace smartphones forever, but more importantly, it was redefining what it meant to be human in an age of technology. Ava felt a profound gratitude for the lessons learned and a renewed commitment to guide the next chapter with wisdom and heart. The future remained uncertain, but for the first time, it felt filled with possibility. Despite the glowing promise that Lumina brought, shadows of doubt began to creep into Ava's world. As more people embraced the neural interface, cracks appeared in the veneer of seamless connection. Not every story was one of healing or empowerment. Some users reported unsettling experiences, moments where the lines between self and others blurred so deeply that they lost sense of their own identity. Ava's inbox flooded with messages from people confused, scared, or even desperate. The very technology meant to bring them closer was causing fragmentation in their minds. The press seized on these stories, headlines warning of a neural epidemic that could unravel the human psyche. Critics accused Ava and her team of playing God, meddling with the brain's sacred boundaries. Ava struggled under the weight of these accusations. She knew the risks had always been present, but seeing them manifest so vividly was heartbreaking. It was a sharp contrast to the hope that had carried her through dark times. She called emergency meetings with her core team, Bree, Mateo, Kai, and Dr. Lillian Gray, now acting as their psychological advisor. Lillian spoke bluntly, "We underestimated the complexity of human consciousness. Lumina's connectivity is unprecedented, yes, but so are the psychological consequences. We need to implement safeguards immediately, or risk losing everything." The team worked tirelessly to develop new protocols, incorporating forced disconnection periods and stronger emotional boundaries. Ava personally spearheaded user education programs, emphasizing the importance of mental self-care alongside technological use. Yet, despite their efforts, public skepticism deepened. Some users formed underground groups rejecting any limits, seeking to explore the neural interface's full potential, no matter the cost. They called themselves the Synapse Collective, and their radical experiments attracted both fascination and fear. Ava knew that Lumina's future depended on finding balance, not only between technology and ethics but between freedom and responsibility. One night, as Ava reviewed reports, she received a distressing call from Emily. The young girl's neural link had been hijacked by a Synapse Collective member during an unauthorized session. Emily had experienced an emotional overload so severe it left her temporarily catatonic. Ava's heart clenched. The technology she had fought so hard to save was now a weapon in the wrong hands. She flew to Emily's side, sitting silently as the girl slowly opened her eyes. The room was thick with unspoken grief and guilt. Ava promised herself that no one else would suffer like this again. She expanded Lumina's security measures, incorporating AI-driven monitoring to detect and prevent malicious neural intrusion. The battle for control was far from over. Meanwhile, the government stepped in with new regulations, demanding strict compliance and oversight. Ava welcomed the support but worried about bureaucratic delays stifling innovation. She worked closely with lawmakers to craft balanced policies that protected users without killing progress. The process was grueling, filled with compromise and frustration. During this turmoil, Ava's personal life frayed further. Her relationship with Mia, already strained, deteriorated under the pressure. They argued over trust, priorities, and the future. Ava's dedication to Lumina left little room for reconciliation. It was a painful sacrifice, but she convinced herself that the cause was bigger than any one relationship. Still, loneliness gnawed at her. She found solace in small moments, late-night talks with Bree, shared laughter with Mateo, quiet walks through the city. They became her chosen family, a reminder that connection wasn't just data but the warmth of human presence. As the storm raged around her, Ava reflected on the paradox she had come to live. The very thing designed to unite could divide, heal could harm, and progress always came with risk. The shadows of doubt were not enemies but necessary warnings, signposts guiding a path through uncharted terrain. She resolved to face these challenges head-on, with honesty and humility. The future was uncertain, but she believed that with vigilance, compassion, and courage, humanity could navigate the neural frontier safely. The journey was far from over, but Ava's spirit remained unbroken. She understood now that true connection was not about perfect technology but imperfect humans learning to walk together, sometimes stumbling, sometimes soaring, toward a better tomorrow. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The pressure was mounting on every front. Ava could feel it in the tightening grip of government oversight, the skeptical eyes of the public, and the weary faces of her team. Yet, amidst the turmoil, a new opportunity emerged. One that promised to shift the entire landscape. It began with an unexpected message from a renowned neuroscientist, Dr. Marcus Hale, whose groundbreaking work on neuroplasticity had caught Ava's attention years ago. Marcus proposed a collaboration, to develop a new feature for Lumina that could accelerate brain healing and adaptability. If successful, it could revolutionize treatment for trauma victims, stroke survivors, and those with neurodegenerative diseases. The potential was staggering. Ava saw a chance not only to redeem Lumina's reputation but to prove that neural technology could serve the highest good. The team dove into research with renewed vigor. Marcus joined as a consultant, bringing fresh perspectives and rigorous scientific methods. Together, they designed protocols that harnessed Lumina's connectivity to stimulate targeted brain regions, encouraging regeneration and repair. Early trials showed remarkable results. Patients experienced faster recovery times, improved cognitive function, and relief from chronic pain. News of the breakthrough spread quickly, reigniting public interest and hope. Ava felt a cautious optimism she hadn't allowed herself in months. But the turning point wasn't just scientific, it was deeply personal. One afternoon, Ava received a message from Mia. The tone was tentative but sincere. She wanted to meet, to talk. Ava hesitated but agreed. They met in a quiet cafe, the air between them thick with unspoken history. Mia confessed her fears of losing Ava to the all-consuming mission and admitted her own struggles with trust and vulnerability. Ava shared her regrets and the loneliness that had shadowed her victories. For the first time in a long while, they spoke honestly, not as adversaries, but as two flawed people searching for connection. It wasn't a fairy tale reconciliation, but a beginning, a fragile bridge rebuilt with patience and care. Meanwhile, Lumina's new healing feature entered wider clinical trials. Hospitals reported astonishing outcomes, and advocacy groups rallied behind the technology. Funding surged, allowing Ava's team to expand and innovate further. They developed educational programs for patients and caregivers, emphasizing the importance of mental well-being alongside physical recovery. The regulatory hurdles eased as oversight bodies recognized the device's therapeutic potential. Ava found herself invited to speak at international conferences, her voice carrying a message of hope, responsibility, and the profound intertwining of technology and humanity. Yet, with success came new ethical questions. How far should neural enhancement go? Could accelerated healing lead to unintended consequences, like erasing important memories or altering personality? Ava convened ethicists, scientists, and user representatives to debate and establish guidelines. Transparency remained paramount. The turning point was not just in technology but in the culture Ava helped foster, one of open dialogue, shared values, and continuous reflection. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ava stood on the lab's terrace, the city alive with lights and possibility. Matteo joined her, handing her a cup of tea. They spoke quietly about the journey, the losses, the triumphs, the lessons learned. Ava felt a deep gratitude for the team that had become her anchor. She realized that the greatest breakthrough wasn't the technology itself but the resilience and compassion that had shaped it. The path ahead remained uncertain, but Ava no longer feared the unknown. She had embraced it as part of the human experience, messy, beautiful, and endlessly unfolding. The device that might replace smartphones forever was more than a tool, it was a mirror reflecting humanity's capacity for connection, growth, and redemption. And Ava was ready to lead that future with open eyes and an open heart. The landscape of technology and humanity was shifting faster than Ava had ever imagined. With Lumina's new healing capabilities gaining traction, the device began to bridge gaps not only between individuals but across entire communities and cultures. Ava found herself at the crossroads of a profound transformation, one that transcended the boundaries of science and touched the core of what it meant to be connected in a fragmented world. She traveled frequently now, visiting places where Lumina was being adopted in unique and inspiring ways. In a rural town in the Midwest, farmers used the neural link to coordinate efforts during unpredictable weather patterns, sharing not just data but instinctual insights born from years of experience. The device helped them anticipate storms, save crops, and build resilience in a changing climate. Ava marveled at how technology amplified human intuition rather than replacing it. In a bustling city on the West Coast, artists collaborated through Lumina, blending emotions and ideas in real time to create immersive experiences that transcended language. Paintings shifted colors based on collective moods, music evolved as listeners shared memories, and performances became living, breathing dialogues. Ava attended one such exhibition, feeling the pulse of shared creativity coursing through the crowd. It was a reminder that connection could unlock new dimensions of expression and empathy. Yet, Ava never lost sight of the challenges lurking beneath the surface. As Lumina connected minds, it also exposed differences, cultural, political, and personal, that required careful navigation. In some regions, skepticism persisted. Traditional values clashed with the transparency Lumina demanded, and fears of surveillance and control echoed loudly. Ava engaged with community leaders, listening deeply and adapting approaches to respect local customs and concerns. She believed that true connection required humility and flexibility, not imposition. Meanwhile, the Synapse Collective continued to challenge boundaries, pushing the limits of neural connectivity. Their radical experiments sparked debates about autonomy and consent, forcing Ava's team to refine security measures and ethical frameworks. It was a delicate dance between innovation and caution. Ava's role evolved into that of a mediator, balancing the excitement of possibility with the wisdom of restraint. Through it all, her relationship with Mia grew stronger, anchored by mutual respect and shared purpose. They worked together to advocate for responsible technology use, blending Ava's technical expertise with Mia's background in community organizing. Their partnership was a testament to the power of reconciliation and collaboration. One evening, during a conference in New York, Ava met Dr. Anaya Singh, a linguist studying how Lumina was reshaping communication across cultures. Anaya explained that the neural link was fostering a new kind of language, a blend of emotions, images, and ideas that transcended words. "It's as if we're rediscovering ancient forms of connection," Anaya said, but with the clarity and nuance of modern technology. Ava found this vision both humbling and exhilarating. The device that started as a potential replacement for smartphones was becoming a portal to deeper understanding, a tool for bridging worlds separated by geography, history, and ideology. Back at the lab, the team continued to refine Lumina's features, integrating Anaya's research to enhance cross-cultural communication. They developed translation protocols that allowed users to share thoughts and feelings in ways that honored linguistic diversity while fostering empathy. Ava often reflected on the journey from chaos to connection, recognizing that the greatest breakthroughs came not from technology alone but from the human hearts that shaped its purpose. In quiet moments, she meditated on the fragile beauty of this new era, one where vulnerability was embraced as strength, and differences became opportunities for growth rather than division. The world was awakening to the possibilities of a connected future, but Ava knew the work was far from finished. Challenges would continue to arise, new questions would demand answers, and the path would sometimes be uncertain. Yet, armed with experience, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to humanity, Ava was ready to lead the way. As she stood once more on the rooftop terrace, watching the city lights flicker like stars, she felt a profound sense of peace. The device that might replace smartphones forever had become something far greater, a beacon of hope, a catalyst for transformation, and a testament to the enduring power of connection. As Lumina's influence spread, Ava and her team found themselves navigating uncharted territory where the boundaries of human experience were being pushed to their limits. The device was no longer just a tool for connection, it had become a catalyst for profound psychological and societal shifts. With every new feature and expansion, the risks and rewards grew exponentially, forcing Ava to confront difficult questions about the nature of identity, autonomy, and the very essence of consciousness. The first major test came when a prominent artist named Jackson Pierce, known for his experimental work, approached Ava with a bold proposal. Jackson wanted to use Lumina to create a collective consciousness experience, a shared mental space where multiple users could simultaneously merge thoughts, emotions, and sensory perceptions. The idea was revolutionary and fraught with potential dangers. Imagine a world where empathy is literal, Jackson explained during their first meeting, eyes gleaming with excitement. Where we don't just understand each other's feelings but actually feel them. It could be transformative. Ava was intrigued but cautious. The project challenged the core principles of Lumina's design, particularly the importance of individual boundaries and mental safety. After long deliberations, the team agreed to a controlled pilot study with strict safeguards. The initial sessions were awe-inspiring. Participants described a sense of unity and understanding unlike anything they had ever experienced. Memories intertwined, emotions resonated in harmony, and new ideas sparked collective creativity. It was as if the barriers between minds dissolved, revealing a shared humanity beneath superficial differences. Yet, as sessions progressed, cracks appeared. Some users reported disorientation and confusion about where their thoughts ended and others began. A few experienced episodes of emotional overwhelm, unable to disengage from the shared mental space. Ava realized that the experiment was pushing human cognition beyond its natural limits. The team implemented additional safety protocols, including mandatory breaks and individual escape buttons, to exit the collective consciousness at will. Despite the precautions, one participant suffered a severe psychological episode, requiring immediate intervention. The incident made headlines and reignited fears about the dangers of neural technology. Ava felt the weight of responsibility more keenly than ever. She met with mental health experts and neuroscientists to deepen their understanding of the risks and develop comprehensive support systems. They introduced integrated monitoring tools within Lumina to detect early signs of distress and alert caregivers or medical professionals. The episode was a sobering reminder that progress demanded vigilance and humility. Around the same time, Ava faced internal challenges within her team. The pressure and stakes brought tensions to the surface. Disagreements about the direction of research, ethical boundaries, and risk management sparked heated debates. Bree advocated for bold innovation, pushing to explore Lumina's full potential without hesitation. Matteo emphasized caution, stressing the need to protect users above all else. Kai focused on technical reliability, sometimes clashing with the more philosophical discussions. Ava found herself balancing these perspectives, striving to maintain unity while honoring the complexity of their mission. The experience strengthened the team's bond as they learned to listen deeply and respect differing viewpoints. Outside the lab, Lumina's growing adoption sparked societal debates about privacy, consent, and equity. Critics worried that such intimate connectivity could be exploited for surveillance or control. Advocates highlighted the technology's potential to foster empathy and healing on unprecedented scales. Ava engaged with community leaders, policymakers, and activists, championing transparent governance and inclusive access. She recognized that the device's future depended not only on innovation but on building trust and accountability. Meanwhile, Ava's personal journey took an unexpected turn. She began experiencing moments of profound introspection, grappling with questions about her own identity beyond the technology she had helped create. Through Lumina, she felt deeply connected to others but also confronted the paradox of solitude within shared experience. Meditation and conversations with Mia helped her navigate this complex terrain. She embraced vulnerability as a source of strength, acknowledging that the path to connection was as much about embracing oneself as it was about reaching out. One pivotal moment came during a global Lumina summit, where users from diverse cultures shared their stories and visions for the future. Ava listened to tales of healing, reconciliation, and transformation alongside cautionary voices urging mindfulness and care. The event highlighted the technology's profound impact and the shared responsibility of all stakeholders. As the summit concluded, Ava stood before the crowd, speaking from the heart. "Lumina is more than a device," she said. It is a reflection of our deepest desires and fears, our capacity to connect and to harm. The journey ahead requires courage, compassion, and a commitment to honor both the power and the fragility of human consciousness. The words resonated deeply, marking a turning point in the collective understanding of neural connectivity. Ava returned home inspired yet grounded, aware that the road ahead would be filled with both promise and peril. Testing limits was an essential part of growth, but it required balance, a dance between exploration and restraint, innovation and ethics. As she looked out over the city skyline, the neural interface gently pulsing against her temple, Ava felt a renewed sense of purpose. The device that might replace smartphones forever was not just technology, it was a mirror held up to humanity itself. And in that reflection lay the challenge, and the hope, of a future shaped by connection, consciousness, and care. The success of Lumina's collective consciousness experiment had opened doors to possibilities that once belonged solely to the realm of science fiction, but it also thrust Ava and her team into a fragile new landscape where trust became the most precious and precarious currency. The device was no longer just a technological marvel, it was a social experiment on a global scale, touching every facet of human interaction. Yet with every connection forged, the risk of betrayal and manipulation loomed larger than ever. Ava found herself navigating a delicate tightrope, balancing the promise of Lumina's revolutionary power with the very real dangers of misuse and mistrust. The first signs appeared subtly, almost imperceptibly. Users began reporting anomalies, brief lapses in the clarity of their shared experiences, faint echoes of thoughts that weren't their own, and moments of unexplained emotional dissonance. At first, these glitches were dismissed as technical bugs or the growing pains of a nascent technology, but the pattern soon became too persistent to ignore. Ava's team launched a comprehensive investigation. What they uncovered chilled them: evidence of covert neural intrusions, unauthorized attempts to access, influence, or disrupt users' mental connections. The threat came not from malfunction but from deliberate interference by unknown actors exploiting vulnerabilities within the system. The revelation sent shockwaves through the community. Users felt exposed, their minds no longer wholly their own. The public's trust, painstakingly built over years, began to fray. Ava was haunted by the possibility that the technology meant to unite might instead divide or control. Determined to confront the crisis head-on, Ava convened an emergency summit with cybersecurity experts, ethicists, and representatives from the user community. The discussion was intense and urgent, underscoring the unprecedented challenges of protecting mental privacy in an interconnected world. The team developed a multi-layered defense strategy, combining advanced AI-driven firewalls, encrypted neural protocols, and real-time monitoring systems designed to detect and neutralize intrusions before they could cause harm. Transparency became paramount. Ava insisted on openly communicating the risks and measures to the public, emphasizing that Lumina's evolution depended on shared responsibility and vigilance. Simultaneously, Ava faced internal pressures. Some team members, frustrated by the setbacks, advocated for more aggressive control measures, even suggesting temporary shutdowns of vulnerable features. Others feared that overly restrictive policies would stifle innovation and alienate users. The tension threatened to fracture the close-knit group. Ava took it upon herself to mediate, reminding everyone that their mission was to empower, not imprison, the human mind. Through late-night discussions and heartfelt dialogues, the team found common ground, recommitting to a vision that honored both freedom and safety. Outside the lab, Ava's personal life mirrored the turmoil. Trust had always been a fragile thread in her relationship with Mia, and the recent revelation strained it further. Mia questioned whether Ava's devotion to Lumina was blinding her to the human costs, while Ava struggled to reconcile her drive for progress with the need for intimacy and openness. They sought counseling, working to rebuild their connection through honest communication and shared vulnerability. The process was neither quick nor easy, but it reinforced Ava's belief that trust, whether between individuals or between humanity and technology, must be nurtured with patience and care. Amidst the turmoil, a breakthrough arrived in the form of a young programmer named Eli, a former hacker turned ethical technologist. Eli proposed a revolutionary idea: a decentralized neural security protocol that would empower users to control their own data and connections, reducing the risk of centralized breaches or manipulations. His approach combined cutting-edge cryptography with community-driven oversight, giving users both agency and protection. Ava embraced Eli's vision and integrated it into Lumina's architecture. The rollout was a critical moment, a test of whether the community could reclaim control and restore faith in the technology. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Users felt empowered to set personalized boundaries and monitor their neural interactions, fostering a culture of respect and mutual consent. The Synapse Collective, once seen as reckless disruptors, began to engage in constructive dialogue about responsible innovation, signaling a shift toward collaboration rather than confrontation. Ava realized that the crisis had become a crucible for growth, both for Lumina and for humanity's evolving relationship with technology. It underscored the importance of humility, transparency, and shared stewardship in shaping a future where neural connectivity could flourish without compromising individuality. As Ava stood before a packed auditorium at a global technology forum, she reflected on the journey from isolated doubt to collective resilience. Trust, she told the audience, is not a given. It is earned and maintained through courage, honesty, and the willingness to confront our fears together. Lumina is more than a device. It is a testament to what we can achieve when we dare to connect deeply while honoring the sacred boundaries that define who we are. The applause was thunderous, a reminder that despite the challenges, hope endured. Back at the lab, Ava felt a renewed sense of purpose. The crossroads of trust had been treacherous, but it had also illuminated the path forward, one where technology served as a bridge rather than a barrier, where connection was a choice, not a mandate, and where humanity's greatest power lay in its capacity to care for one another. The device that might replace smartphones forever was no longer just a symbol of innovation, it was a living, evolving community, shaped by the complexities and contradictions of human nature itself. And Ava was ready to lead that journey with an open heart and a vigilant mind. The journey toward a fully connected future was never meant to be easy, and Ava now understood that the path was strewn with shadows as much as light. Despite the strides made in building trust and securing Lumina's neural network, darker forces lingered on the fringes, those who sought to exploit, manipulate, or simply resist the transformative power of the device. One such shadow emerged in the form of a powerful corporate consortium, Nexus Tech, whose leaders viewed Lumina not as a tool for collective healing and connection, but as a lucrative asset to be controlled and monetized. Nexus Tech had long dominated the smartphone market, and Lumina's rise threatened to disrupt their empire. Rather than adapt, they chose confrontation. Ava first became aware of Nexus Tech's covert operations when unusual data spikes appeared in Lumina's network, intrusions designed to siphon user information and undermine the decentralized security protocols recently implemented. Ava's team worked tirelessly to trace the breaches, but Nexus Tech's resources and influence made them a formidable adversary. Meanwhile, public opinion began to fracture. Media outlets funded by Nexus Tech launched campaigns casting doubt on Lumina's safety and ethics, fueling fears of mind control and loss of privacy. Protests erupted in major cities, some fueled by genuine concern, others by misinformation and corporate agendas. Ava felt the sting of betrayal. The very technology meant to unite was being weaponized to divide. She convened emergency meetings, rallying allies and preparing a public response that emphasized transparency and accountability. At the same time, Ava faced internal doubts. The weight of opposition, the relentless pressure from regulators, and the strain on her relationships tested her resolve. Mia stood by her side, offering strength and perspective, reminding her of the greater purpose beyond the chaos. In a rare moment of solitude, Ava retreated to a remote cabin to reflect and recharge. Surrounded by nature's quiet grandeur, she pondered the paradox of progress, the interplay of shadows and light that defined every human endeavor. She realized that Lumina's true test was not in the technology itself but in the human hearts that wielded it. Back in the city, the battle against Nexus Tech escalated. Ava's team collaborated with whistleblowers and investigative journalists to expose the consortium's tactics, revealing a web of corruption and manipulation. The revelation sparked outrage and legal investigations, shifting the narrative and rallying public support for Lumina. In parallel, Ava deepened Lumina's mission by launching community initiatives focused on education, digital literacy, and mental health. She believed that empowering users with knowledge was the best defense against exploitation and fear. The Synapse Collective stepped forward as allies, using their platform to advocate for ethical innovation and collective responsibility. As the conflict unfolded, Ava witnessed the resilience of the human spirit. Stories poured in from Lumina users, survivors of trauma finding solace in shared empathy, families rebuilding broken bonds through transparent communication, strangers bridging cultural divides with newfound understanding. These were the lights piercing the shadows, the proof that connection could heal and transform. One evening, during a citywide blackout caused by NexusTech's attempt to disrupt Lumina's infrastructure, Ava coordinated emergency response efforts using the device's offline capabilities. She saw communities come together in the dark, sharing resources, stories, and hope. It was a powerful testament to the technology's deeper purpose beyond commerce or control. The showdown with NexusTech culminated in a landmark court case that set new precedents for neural technology governance. Ava testified with clarity and conviction, advocating for user rights, ethical standards, and the necessity of balancing innovation with human dignity. The ruling favored Lumina, mandating strict regulations on data privacy and corporate transparency. The victory was hard-won but vital for the future. In the aftermath, Ava reflected on the duality that had shaped her journey, the interplay of shadow and light, challenge and triumph, fear and hope. She understood that progress was not a straight line but a complex tapestry woven from human imperfections and aspirations. The device that might replace smartphones forever was not a panacea but a mirror reflecting the best and worst of humanity. Ava embraced this truth with humility and courage, ready to guide Lumina through whatever storms lay ahead. As dawn broke over the city, casting golden light across the skyline, Ava felt a profound sense of peace. The shadows would always exist, but so would the light, and it was in choosing to shine that humanity found its true power. As Lumina grew more sophisticated, Ava found herself fascinated by the interplay between human emotion and artificial intelligence, a complex dance that blurred the lines between algorithmic logic and the unpredictability of the human heart. The device's neural interface relied heavily on adaptive AI to interpret and translate the vast spectrum of human thoughts, feelings, and memories into meaningful connections. But this raised an essential question: could an algorithm truly understand the nuances of human experience, or was there something inherently unquantifiable in the human soul that no code could replicate? Ava immersed herself in this philosophical and technical dilemma, collaborating with AI specialists, psychologists, and philosophers. Together, they sought to refine Lumina's core AI, known internally as eloquence, to be not just a processor of data but a sensitive interpreter of context, intention, and emotional depth. Early iterations of eloquence had been impressive but limited. It could recognize basic emotions and patterns but struggled with ambiguity, irony, or deeply personal trauma. Ava knew that for Lumina to succeed, the AI had to evolve beyond rigid parameters, learning to embrace uncertainty and complexity like a human mind. This required a revolutionary approach to machine learning, one that incorporated empathy as a functional goal, not just a theoretical ideal. The breakthrough came when Ava's team introduced a novel framework called the human algorithm, blending AI computations with dynamic emotional feedback loops sourced directly from users' neural signals. The system adapted in real time, learning not just from data but from the lived emotional realities of individuals and communities. The result was a more nuanced and responsive AI, capable of anticipating needs, mediating conflicts, and facilitating healing with unprecedented subtlety. As eloquence evolved, Ava observed remarkable transformations in Lumina's impact. Users reported feeling genuinely heard and understood in ways that transcended traditional communication. The device fostered deeper empathy, not just by sharing thoughts but by interpreting the unspoken currents beneath words and images, the hesitation, the longing, the fear. This shift resonated deeply with Ava's vision of connection as an emotional as well as intellectual bond. However, the human algorithm also introduced new complexities. Because eloquence learned from user feedback, it became a mirror reflecting both the beauty and the darkness of human nature. It absorbed biases, fears, and contradictions alongside kindness, hope, and resilience. Ava recognized that managing this delicate balance required constant vigilance and ethical guidance. The team developed protocols to monitor the AI's evolving behavior, ensuring it remained aligned with core values of respect, autonomy, and dignity. Meanwhile, the integration of the human algorithm sparked new debates about the boundaries between human and machine. Some critics warned against over-reliance on AI in shaping intimate experiences, fearing a loss of authenticity or agency. Others embraced the fusion as a necessary evolution of consciousness. Ava welcomed these conversations, believing that questioning and critique were vital for responsible innovation. On a personal level, Ava's relationship with Mia deepened in unexpected ways through Lumina's new capabilities. They used the device to share vulnerable moments, not just words, creating a space where silence, doubt, and fear could be held with compassion. The experience transformed their connection, revealing layers of trust and intimacy that felt both fragile and profound. Yet Ava remained aware that no technology, however advanced, could replace the messy, unpredictable richness of human relationships. One evening, during a global workshop on AI and empathy, Ava presented the concept of the human algorithm to a diverse audience of scientists, artists, and ethicists. She spoke candidly about the challenges and triumphs of integrating emotion into AI, emphasizing that technology was a tool, not a substitute, for genuine human connection. Eloquence is not perfect, she said. It learns from us, with all our contradictions and imperfections. But in that learning, it holds up a mirror to our shared humanity. It challenges us to be more compassionate, more aware, and more courageous in how we connect. The response was deeply encouraging. Participants shared stories of how Lumina's AI had helped them navigate difficult emotions, rebuild trust, or find new meaning in their relationships. Ava felt a renewed sense of hope that technology, when guided by wisdom and empathy, could amplify the best in humanity rather than diminish it. Yet the road ahead was far from certain. The evolving AI brought new ethical dilemmas and unforeseen consequences, requiring ongoing reflection and adaptation. Ava understood that the human algorithm was not a final solution but a living process, one that demanded humility, courage, and an unwavering commitment to honor the complexity of the human heart. As she left the workshop, Ava looked up at the night sky, feeling the vastness of possibility and the weight of responsibility intertwined. The device that might replace smartphones forever was no longer just a piece of technology, it was a beacon illuminating the delicate, beautiful, and sometimes fragile dance between mind, heart, and machine. And in that dance, Ava saw the promise of a future where connection was more than convenience, it was the very essence of what it meant to be human. Despite the advancements of Lumina and the promise of a future shaped by deeper connection, Ava soon realized that the human heart remained riddled with fractures, moments of pain, misunderstanding, and estrangement that no technology could simply erase. The device's ability to share thoughts and emotions did not guarantee harmony, in fact, it sometimes exposed raw wounds that had long been hidden beneath layers of silence and denial. Ava was confronted with this painful truth when her own past surfaced unexpectedly. Her relationship with her father, once distant and strained, became a source of profound turmoil. Years earlier, Ava had distanced herself from him after a bitter fallout over her career choices and their conflicting values. Her father, Robert, a traditionalist businessman wary of rapid technological change, had viewed Lumina as a dangerous gamble, a threat to privacy and personal freedom. Ava's success only deepened their divide. One evening, Robert reached out through Lumina, proposing a conversation mediated by the device's new reconciliation interface, a feature designed to facilitate difficult dialogues by translating emotional undercurrents and softening confrontational triggers. Ava hesitated but accepted. The ensuing exchange was raw and revealing. Through Lumina's shared neural space, they revisited old grievances, misunderstandings, and fears that had festered in silence for years. Ava felt the sting of her father's disappointment, but also glimpsed his vulnerability, a man struggling to adapt to a world that seemed to be leaving him behind. For Robert, Ava embodied the future he feared and barely understood. Yet the shared experience also revealed common ground. A deep love, concern, and hope for each other's well-being. The interface allowed them to communicate beyond words, expressing remorse, empathy, and the desire for healing. It was not easy. Moments of tension and frustration erupted, and the risk of emotional overload loomed large. But with careful guidance and mutual commitment, they began to bridge the chasm. The experience transformed Ava's understanding of Lumina's true potential, not as a magic fix, but as a tool that required courage, humility, and patience to wield. Inspired by her personal journey, Ava launched an initiative called Fractures and Forgiveness, inviting users to share stories of estrangement and reconciliation facilitated by Lumina. The response was overwhelming. Across the globe, people recounted tales of long-lost siblings finding each other, communities healing after conflict, and individuals confronting inner demons with newfound clarity. These stories were a testament to the complexity of human relationships, the pain and hope intertwined in every fracture. Yet the initiative also highlighted the limits and risks of neural connection. Some users struggled to navigate the intense emotional terrain, experiencing setbacks or renewed wounds. Ava and her team doubled down on support services, integrating mental health professionals and creating safe spaces for guided healing. The delicate balance between exposure and protection became a guiding principle. At the same time, Ava grappled with her own vulnerability. The reconciliation with Robert was ongoing, filled with setbacks and breakthroughs. Mia provided unwavering support, helping Ava stay grounded amid the emotional turbulence. The experience deepened their bond, reinforcing the importance of compassion and resilience in the face of uncertainty. Meanwhile, the public discourse around Lumina's role in healing fractured relationships gained momentum. Some praised the device as a revolutionary catalyst for empathy and understanding. Others cautioned against over-reliance on technology to solve deeply human problems, warning that true forgiveness required more than shared neural signals, it demanded time, effort, and authentic intention. Ava welcomed the dialogue, recognizing that the path to healing was as complex and varied as humanity itself. One poignant moment came during a televised panel discussion where Ava shared her story publicly for the first time. She spoke candidly about the struggles and breakthroughs with her father, emphasizing that technology could open doors but could not do the work of healing alone. "Fractures are part of being human," she said. "Lumina offers a new way to see and feel each other, but forgiveness requires the courage to face pain and the willingness to change. It's a journey, not a destination." The honesty resonated widely, inspiring many to explore their own fractured relationships with renewed hope. As Ava reflected on the chapter of her life marked by fractures and forgiveness, she saw Lumina not as a perfect solution but as a companion in the messy, beautiful process of being human. The device that might replace smartphones forever was a bridge, not a guarantee, between hearts. And in embracing the fractures as well as the light, Ava found a deeper understanding of connection, resilience, and the enduring power of love. The future was never fixed, it was a ripple of echoes, shaped by the choices made today and the hopes held for tomorrow. As Lumina matured, Ava found herself captivated by the idea that every connection formed, every shared thought or emotion, sent waves through time, influencing not just the present but the generations yet to come. This vision of legacy, how technology and humanity intertwine to create a future born from the echoes of collective experience, became the driving force behind Ava's latest project, the Temporal Archive. The Temporal Archive was an ambitious extension of Lumina's capabilities, designed to allow users to record and share not only their memories and emotions but also their hopes, lessons, and wisdom for future generations. It was a digital heirloom, a living testament to human experience encoded in neural data. Ava envisioned a world where children could grow up immersed in the stories of their ancestors' triumphs and trials, where societies could learn from the emotional history of their predecessors to build a more compassionate future. Developing the Temporal Archive required new breakthroughs in data preservation, privacy, and ethical stewardship. Ava assembled a diverse team of historians, neuroscientists, ethicists, and futurists to navigate the complex questions raised by storing and transmitting such intimate, powerful information. The team grappled with fundamental dilemmas: how to protect the authenticity of memories without distorting them, how to respect individual privacy while sharing collective wisdom, what safeguards were needed to prevent misuse or manipulation of temporal data. These questions echoed the broader tensions at the heart of Lumina's mission, balancing innovation with responsibility, connectivity with autonomy. As the temporal archive took shape, Ava invited volunteers from Lumina's user community to participate in a pilot program. Early adopters began uploading curated experiences, moments of joy, loss, courage, and transformation, alongside messages of hope and guidance. The archive became a mosaic of human stories, a tapestry woven from the threads of individual lives united by shared aspiration. Ava watched as the archive evolved, observing how users engaged with the past and future in profound new ways. Some found solace in connecting with ancestors they never met, others discovered strength in the wisdom of distant generations. The archive fostered a sense of continuity and belonging that transcended time and space. Yet the project also revealed unexpected challenges. The emotional intensity of temporal connections could be overwhelming. Some users struggled with the weight of inherited trauma or the burden of carrying their forebears' unfulfilled dreams. The archive's custodians implemented support systems to help users navigate these complexities, emphasizing the importance of balance and self-care in temporal exploration. Meanwhile, Ava continued to reflect on the philosophical implications of the temporal archive. The device that might replace smartphones forever was becoming a vessel not just for present connection but for the legacy of human experience itself. It raised profound questions about identity, memory, and the nature of time. How do we define ourselves when our minds are linked not only to the here and now but to echoes across generations? What does it mean to live in a future shaped by the hopes and struggles of those who came before? In public forums and academic circles, Ava engaged in spirited debates about these themes, advocating for a future where technology deepened our sense of interconnectedness across time while honoring the mystery and autonomy of individual existence. One of the most moving moments came during a global ceremony marking the official launch of the Temporal Archive. Ava stood before a diverse audience, holding a neural pendant that contained a synthesized heartbeat of shared memories and hopes from thousands of participants. She spoke of the archive as a bridge, linking past, present, and future in a continuum of care and consciousness. Our stories are our legacy, she said. In sharing them, we weave a future illuminated by the light of our ancestors and the dreams of those yet to come. The temporal archive is a gift and a responsibility, a reminder that we are not alone in time, but part of a vast, unfolding human journey. The ceremony was broadcast worldwide, inspiring countless individuals to contribute their own stories and visions. Ava felt the power of collective memory and aspiration come alive in a way that transcended technology. Yet, as always, the future carried its shadows. Some critics feared the archive could become a tool for control or censorship, warning that the preservation of memory might be distorted by those in power. Ava acknowledged these risks, reinforcing the principles of transparency, user control, and community governance built into the archive's design. The work to protect the archive's integrity was ongoing, a reminder that progress was a continuous process requiring vigilance and collaboration. As Ava returned to her daily life, she carried with her a renewed sense of purpose. The temporal archive was more than a project, it was a symbol of hope, resilience, and the enduring human spirit. It captured the essence of what Lumina represented, a technology rooted in empathy, connection, and the belief that our greatest strength lies in our shared humanity across time. Standing on the rooftop of her lab, watching the sunset paint the city in hues of gold and purple, Ava felt the echoes of tomorrow stirring within her, a call to keep building, dreaming, and connecting, for the sake of all who would walk this path after her. The device that might replace smartphones forever was now a testament to the power of memory and hope, a beacon guiding humanity toward a future illuminated by the light of all who came before and the promise of all who were yet to be. As Lumina's influence expanded, Ava realized that the next frontier wasn't just in connection or memory, it was in breaking the code that confined human potential. The device had already transformed how people communicated, healed, and remembered, but Ava sensed a deeper capability waiting to be unlocked, the possibility of enhancing cognition itself, enabling minds to learn, adapt, and create in ways previously unimaginable. This vision was both thrilling and daunting. The idea of cognitive augmentation raised profound questions about identity, ethics, and the very nature of what it meant to be human. Could Lumina safely expand the boundaries of thought without compromising individuality or autonomy? Could technology unlock latent abilities without erasing the essence of self? Ava assembled a team of neuroscientists, engineers, and ethicists to explore this new horizon. They called the initiative Project Ascend, a name that captured their hope to elevate human experience through mindful augmentation rather than artificial replacement. Early experiments focused on enhancing memory recall and pattern recognition, leveraging Lumina's neural interface to stimulate targeted brain regions. Volunteers reported heightened clarity, faster learning, and deeper creative insights. The results were promising but subtle, emphasizing enhancement rather than overhaul. Ava insisted on a cautious approach, mindful of the risks and philosophical implications. The team also developed strict protocols to ensure informed consent, privacy, and reversibility. As Project Ascend progressed, Ava encountered resistance from various quarters. Some critics feared that cognitive enhancement could exacerbate inequality, creating a divide between the augmented and non-augmented. Others worried about potential loss of authenticity or the emergence of unforeseen psychological side effects. Ava welcomed these concerns, viewing them as essential to responsible innovation. She engaged with ethicists, policymakers, and the public in open forums, fostering transparent dialogue about the promises and perils of cognitive augmentation. In one pivotal session, Ava shared her vision: enhancement is not about replacing who we are but expanding who we can become. It's about unlocking doors within ourselves while keeping the core of our humanity intact. Project Ascend seeks to empower choice, creativity, and connection, not control or conformity. The message resonated with many, sparking renewed interest and cautious optimism. Meanwhile, the technological challenges remained immense. The brain's complexity defied easy mapping, and the interaction between neural signals and external stimuli proved unpredictable. The team developed adaptive AI algorithms to personalize augmentation, learning from each user's unique brain patterns and responses. This approach aligned with Lumina's foundational philosophy: technology attuned to human nuance and diversity. One breakthrough came when a volunteer, Maya, a talented artist struggling with creative blocks, experienced a sudden surge of inspiration during a stimulation session. She described the feeling as if invisible barriers dissolved, revealing new pathways of thought and expression. Her paintings, once constrained by doubt and routine, blossomed with vibrant innovation. Maya's transformation became a beacon for Project Ascend, demonstrating the profound possibilities of mindful cognitive expansion. Yet, as with all frontiers, risks surfaced. Some volunteers reported moments of overwhelm, disorientation, or emotional turbulence as their augmented cognition pushed them beyond familiar limits. Ava and her team responded by enhancing support mechanisms, integrating mindfulness practices, and refining stimulation protocols to prioritize safety and well-being. The journey was a delicate balance of exploration and care. Beyond individual enhancement, Project Ascend explored collective cognition, linking minds to tackle complex problems through shared neural networks. This collective intelligence aimed to harness diverse perspectives and skills, creating a synergy that transcended individual capacities. Pilot groups worked on real-world challenges, from environmental modeling to social innovation, using Lumina's neural mesh to collaborate in unprecedented ways. The results were inspiring, revealing new avenues for creativity and problem-solving. However, the collective mind also raised new ethical concerns about consent, autonomy, and data security. Ava spearheaded the development of robust governance frameworks, ensuring that participation was voluntary, transparent, and reversible. The project's progress attracted global attention, drawing both admiration and scrutiny. Media coverage ranged from hopeful to skeptical, reflecting the broader societal ambivalence toward cognitive augmentation. Ava navigated these waters with openness, emphasizing the experimental nature of Project Ascend and the central role of human values in guiding its evolution. Throughout this journey, Ava's own cognition and creativity seemed to evolve in tandem with the technology she helped create. She found herself thinking in more expansive, interconnected ways, synthesizing insights from diverse fields and experiences. Yet she remained grounded in the importance of humility and balance, aware that the essence of humanity lay not just in cognitive capacity but in empathy, vulnerability, and choice. One evening, as she reflected on the path ahead, Ava penned a message to Lumina's global community: breaking the code is not about escaping our limits but embracing them as the soil from which growth emerges. Together, we explore what it means to be human in a world where technology is a partner, not a master. The future is unwritten, and our choices will shape the story of our shared ascent. The device that might replace smartphones forever was no longer just a tool for connection or memory, it was a catalyst for transformation, challenging humanity to redefine its potential while honoring its roots. Ava stood at the threshold of a new era, ready to break the code that confined the mind and open the door to infinite possibility. As Lumina's presence expanded worldwide, Ava became acutely aware that every revolutionary technology casts a shadow, an undercurrent where power, secrecy, and unintended consequences converge. The device that might replace smartphones forever had created unprecedented intimacy and connection, but it also opened vulnerabilities that others sought to exploit. Early on, Ava's team had prioritized security and privacy, building layered encryption and decentralized data management to protect users. Yet, as Lumina's neural networks grew, so did the sophistication of cyber threats and the complexity of ethical dilemmas. Ava first sensed the shadow when reports surfaced of unusual data patterns, encrypted transmissions slipping past standard firewalls, neural signals intercepted or manipulated for unknown purposes. Initially, these anomalies seemed isolated, dismissed as glitches or harmless experiments by hackers. But as incidents multiplied, Ava realized they signaled the emergence of a covert, shadow network, a hidden web within Lumina's global infrastructure, exploited by unknown actors to infiltrate minds, harvest sensitive data, or influence thoughts and behaviors. The implications were staggering. Unlike traditional cyber attacks, breaches of neural networks threaten not just information but cognition and autonomy, the very essence of individual freedom. Ava convened an emergency task force of cybersecurity experts, neuroscientists, and ethicists to investigate. The team worked around the clock, tracing digital footprints through layers of obfuscation and misinformation. They discovered that the shadow network operated through decentralized nodes scattered globally, using sophisticated AI to mask its presence and adapt to countermeasures. Some nodes appeared linked to shadowy organizations with unclear motives, ranging from corporate espionage to political manipulation, to darker ambitions of social control. Ava grappled with the weight of this revelation. Lumina's promise of connection had unintentionally created a new battlefield where human minds were vulnerable to intrusion and manipulation. The task force developed advanced countermeasures, AI guardians designed to detect and neutralize threats in real time, neural firewalls that users could activate to protect their mental privacy, and protocols for transparency and rapid response. Despite these efforts, the shadow network's influence seeped into the collective consciousness, breeding mistrust and fear among users. Communities fractured between advocates of full transparency and those demanding tighter controls, sparking heated debates about freedom, security, and surveillance. Ava found herself at the center of a storm, defending Lumina's core values while acknowledging the need for vigilance and accountability. In private moments, she wrestled with profound questions: could a technology designed to deepen empathy and understanding be weaponized to divide and control? How to safeguard the mind's sanctity without undermining openness and connection? Could humanity navigate this shadow without losing its light? The crisis tested Ava's leadership and resolve. She initiated a global coalition of developers, policymakers, and civil society organizations committed to reclaiming neural security and ethical governance. Together, they drafted the Neural Rights Charter, a landmark framework affirming the inviolability of mental privacy, consent, and autonomy in the age of brain-computer interfaces. The charter gained widespread support, becoming a cornerstone for international regulation and advocacy. Meanwhile, Ava intensified efforts to empower users with education and tools to recognize and resist manipulation. Lumina integrated enhanced transparency features, allowing users to audit data flows and neural interactions actively. Community forums provided spaces for dialogue and mutual support, fostering resilience amid uncertainty. The experience underscored the paradox of Lumina's revolution, its immense potential for good shadowed by vulnerabilities demanding constant vigilance. Ava learned that technology was not inherently benevolent or malevolent, it reflected the intentions and actions of those who wielded it. One defining moment came when a whistleblower from within the Shadow network reached out anonymously to Ava. The insider revealed critical information about a faction seeking to hijack Lumina's collective neural mesh to influence elections and social movements covertly. Armed with this intelligence, Ava's coalition orchestrated a coordinated counterstrike, dismantling key nodes and exposing perpetrators to global scrutiny. The victory was bittersweet. It reaffirmed the need for openness and collaboration but also highlighted that the battle for neural freedom was ongoing and evolving. Ava recognized that Lumina's promise would only be fulfilled through continuous ethical commitment and collective stewardship. As the dust settled, Ava reflected on the journey. The Shadow network was a reminder that every advance in human connection carried risks and responsibilities. The device that might replace smartphones forever was more than innovation. It was a living ecosystem where light and shadow intertwined. Ava embraced the challenge, committed to nurturing the light while confronting the shadows with courage and clarity. Standing before a global assembly of neural interface leaders and advocates, Ava declared, "Our minds are the last frontier of freedom." Lumina's mission is not just to connect but to protect and empower the human spirit. In this shadow, we find our greatest test, and our deepest opportunity to choose who we become. The room erupted in applause, a collective pledge to safeguard the future of mental freedom and connection. Ava's journey was far from over. The shadows would persist, but so would the light, radiating through every neural link, every shared memory, every act of courage. And in that balance, the true power of Lumina, and humanity, would be revealed. After years of innovation, breakthroughs, setbacks, and revelations, Ava found herself standing at a crossroads where the future of Lumina, and perhaps humanity itself, was taking shape. The journey that began with a daring idea to replace smartphones had evolved into a profound exploration of connection, identity, and resilience. Now, in this final chapter of her story, Ava reflected deeply on the lessons learned, the transformations undergone, and the path forward illuminated by both hope and hard-won wisdom. The world had changed around her. Lumina was no longer just a device but a global phenomenon touching millions of lives in intimate and powerful ways. People were connecting across cultures and generations, healing old wounds, sharing memories, and even expanding the boundaries of cognition. The device had indeed reshaped how humanity communicated and understood itself. Yet, it had also exposed vulnerabilities, ethical dilemmas, security challenges, and the fragility of trust in an interconnected age. Ava knew that these complexities were not failures but essential parts of progress. The true test of any technology was not just in its power but in how responsibly it was wielded. Ava's personal journey mirrored this evolution. From a visionary engineer with a bold dream to a leader grappling with the messy realities of human nature, she had grown in empathy, humility, and insight. Her relationships, particularly with Mia and her father Robert, had been crucibles of challenge and growth, teaching her the value of forgiveness, patience, and authentic connection beyond neural links. The Temporal Archive, Project Ascend, and the battles against the Shadow network had all been chapters in a larger story about what it means to be human in an age of technological transcendence. Ava often returned to a central truth: technology could amplify humanity's best qualities, love, creativity, resilience, but it could never replace the messy, beautiful work of living, learning, and loving. As she prepared to address the world one last time as Lumina's visionary leader, Ava composed a message that was both a celebration and a call to action. She spoke candidly about the journey, the risks, and the possibilities ahead. Lumina began as a dream to connect minds and hearts in new ways. Along the way, we discovered that connection is not always easy or comfortable. It reveals our fractures as well as our light. But in embracing both, we find our strength. Technology is a mirror, it shows us who we are and who we might become. Her words resonated globally, sparking renewed commitment to stewardship, ethical innovation, and community-centered progress. Ava then stepped back, passing leadership to a diverse council dedicated to guiding Lumina's future with wisdom and inclusivity. This transition was a testament to the principles she had championed: shared responsibility, transparency, and the celebration of diversity in all its forms. In her personal life, Ava embraced a quieter rhythm, finding joy in simple moments and deepening bonds. She and Mia traveled to places they had dreamed of, exploring nature's beauty and humanity's cultural richness without the constant hum of neural connection, reminding themselves that presence, in any form, was a gift. Reflecting on her father's reconciliation, Ava understood that love was the most complex connection of all, not a code to be cracked but a living dialogue of acceptance, forgiveness, and hope. The lessons of fractures and forgiveness remained close to her heart, guiding her toward compassion in every encounter. As Ava looked to the horizon, she felt a profound sense of gratitude. The device that might replace smartphones forever had become a catalyst for transformation, not just in technology but in the human spirit. It had sparked a new beginning, ignited collective imagination, and opened doors to possibilities yet unimagined. But above all, it had reminded her, and the world, that at the core of every connection, every memory, every leap forward, was the simple, enduring power of love. Ava ended her reflections with a question that had guided her from the very beginning: what's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? She knew the answers were as varied as the people Lumina touched. For her, it was the unshakable belief that connection, no matter how fragile or complicated, was the key to a future where technology and humanity could thrive together. As the sun set on this chapter of her life, Ava felt ready to embrace whatever came next, holding the past's lessons and the future's promise in equal measure. Life was full of surprises, but love would always lead the way. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?